Beads of sweat shone on his forehead. The bark cut into the soft flesh of his palm, and an ant crawled onto his finger. He did not recall becoming so winded trekking up this little knoll the other 3 times he'd paid a visit to the hermit of the Montrose woods. But, he thought, as he waited for his breathing to settle, that had been a year and a half ago now. Could time have gone by that quickly? Darrow had an idea that this speeding up of time as his hair grew thinner and became more silver at the temples was a consequence of the pro rata portion of his life being considered. A year to a child of 7 is 1/7 of the time and experience of its entire life. A year to a 70-year-old man is 1/70th of the scope of his existence on this planet. He'd have to take this up with Henry, who loved to joust about with notions, as he called them, to chase high ideas across an afternoon and into the evening and up to the yawning of a late night. Such was the nature of the affection Darrow had developed for Henry James Stuart since their first meeting after his lecture in Fairhope to raise money for the school there. Henry, a stranger then, had brought for him a small hand-woven rug, exquisite, the supple yarn virtually alive with color. Clarence had been reluctant to believe the rug was the work of the old man presenting it to him. And this notepaper folded into Darrow's shirt pocket, the scrawl of ink upon it so filled with hatred that the lawyer believed a bloodhound could smell it, would provoke just what Clarence needed from his friend. Henry would take the note in his hand that shook a little more than the last time they'd sat together in Tolstoy Park, what Henry called his 10 acres of Alabama, and he would read it. He would continue looking at the page for long moments. He'd refold it slowly and hand it back, and let the same hand travel to his chest and the white beard curling at his open shirt collar there. He would twist the long, soft hairs around his index finger and pinch the tuft thoughtfully. Then would come what Darrow so longed for at this moment, starting in his eyes with a small spark, intelligent and rascally at the same time. The warmth of a smile would spread across his Indian-looking cheeks and catch the corners of his mouth and pull them up just so. And he would say, "Well?" He would turn his face and lock eyes with Clarence and nod gently, unblinking. "Let's talk about this." Chapter 1. Henry walked out of the doctor's office, and the drumming rain that had begun to fall went straight through his thin white hair, wetting his head and sending a chill down his back. Instead of putting on his hat, he placed the flat of his palm on his forehead and stroked the dampness accruing there. He sat down on the edge of the porch, quickly soaking the seat of his pants. He rubbed his hands together and massaged the pain in his knuckles, then lifted his left foot and took hold of the heel of his boot and tugged it off. He straightened his back, took a breath, and in a moment crossed his right leg over stiffly and removed the other boot. Henry decided, because it was his option to do so, that he would abandon his boots. He paired them up evenly there on the boards. Henry could not remember when last he had walked barefoot in the rain, mud squishing up between his toes. He believed it was Black Elk, or maybe Chief Seattle, who'd said that the man who always wears his moccasins thinks the earth is covered with leather. Henry looked at his boots and wondered how long they would sit before someone took them. They were good Wellingtons and not badly worn, and he thought someone would be surprised to find a pair of boots on the porch of Dr. Belton's place. Henry planted his palms on his knees, caressed the wet brown twill trousers, and from those points levered himself to standing. He would let his feet know that this piece of earth was covered with mud, and thought perhaps they'd enjoy knowing that. He tilted his face downward and was lifting his rumpled and sweat-stained felt hat when he heard his name called, and, looking up, saw a horse and wagon drawing near the plank sidewalk in front of which he stood. 20 years earlier, in Nampa, Idaho, the first automobile had been delivered on a flat train car. Now, in 1925, the tables were turned, and only a few stubborn sorts still went about in horse-drawn carriages or wagons. This driver was among them. He sat alone on the buckboard seat, the long leather reins drawn tight in his gloved hand, making to stop his dappled gray Appaloosa.